Now, hello and welcome to this exploring session, the second session on Damon and Pythias. I almost called it Pythias and Damon. Who knows where the billing should be? I suppose it depends on who the actor is. A play from around 1565. It is, so far, it's been a relatively simple plot. It is a play by Richard Edwards. The only surviving play that we have by this particular author, performed by the children of the chapel, or in theory is, because of course Richard Edwards was the master of the children of the chapel, and it all sort of makes a lot of sense for that to be so. I say it's a relatively simple plot where we're having an away day in Syracuse where the regime is a little bit oppressive. And we've been assured by the prologue that this has got absolutely no modern day political parallels at all. Prologue has made this absolutely clear. That's either because it genuinely isn't, or someone read the play and went, maybe if we're performing this in a court context, we should be really careful about making political messages like that. This debate is slightly open. We have agreement. We have people placing it on both sides. So far. So yes, we've got to the point where one of the two of title characters, Damon, has been arrested. He's been taken away, and so drama is ensuing now, and it's taking a little while for some action to actually occur. Reading today, as we continue the story, reading Damon and Grimm today is...
Hello, I am Lynsey Beauchamp, and I'm an actor, and I'm dialing in from Norfolk.
Reading the other half of the duo, Pythias, today is...
Hello, my name's Lynn Freitas. I'm a writing teacher. I live in the northwestern United States.
Reading Aristippus today is joining us...
Liza Graham, actor, Renaissance text coach, 2 actors, and sometimes singer in London.
Reading Stefano and Snap today is...
Lois Potter, retired academic, also living in London.
Reading Dionysius and Jack is...
Hi, I'm Alan Scott, neither an academic nor an author, based in Suffolk.
Reading Gronno and Carisophus today is...
Hello, my name's Helen Good. I'm a historian. I'm in Yorkshire.
And reading Eubulus and Will today is...
Hello, my name's Andrew Alton-Read. I'm an actor and I come from Chelmsford in Essex.
And I'm your host, Robert Crighton. I'll be reading the stage directions today. Yes, I'm no longer reading Aristippus. It is a wonderful thing. So, without further ado, we're going to rejoin the narrative. There are no act or scene breaks in the text as we've got it. So we're going from about a third of the way in. And the scene opens with here entereth Pythias and Stefano.
What strange news are these? Ah, my Stefano, is my Damon in prison as the voice doth go?
It is true, O cruel hap. He is taken for a spy, and as they say, by Dionysius' own mouth, condemned to die.
To die? Alas, for what cause?
A sycophant falsely accused him. Other cause there is none. But, O Jupiter, of all wrongs the revenger, seest thou this injustice, and wilt thou stay any longer from heaven to send down thy hot consuming fire to destroy the workers of wrong, which provoke thy just ire? Alas, Master Pythias, what shall we do, being in a strange country, void of friends and acquaintance too? Ah, poor Stefano, hast thou lived to see this day, to see thy true master unjustly made away?
Stefano, seeing the matter is come to this extremity, let us make virtue our friend of mere necessity. Run thou to the court and understand secretly as much as thou canst of Damon's case, and I will make some means to entreat Aristippus how he can do much, as I hear, with King Dionysius.
I'm gone, sir. Ah, I would to God my travail and pain might restore my master to his liberty again.
O woeful Pythias, sith now I am alone, what way shall I first begin to make my moan? What words shall I find apt for my complaint? Damon, my friend, my joy, my life is in peril. Of force I must now faint. But O music, as in joyful times the merry notes did borrow, so now lend me thy yearnful tunes to utter my sorrow.
Yes, and here Stefano has exited, though there is no stage direction for it. Pythias having me left alone and to break up the gap in the narrative, I suspect. Here, Pythias sings, you don't have to sing, and the regals play.
Awake, ye woeful wights that long have wept in woe, resign to me your plaints and tears, my hapless hap to show. My woe no tongue can tell, no pen can well descry. Oh, what a death is this to hear! Damon, my friend, must die. The loss of worldly wealth man's wisdom may restore, and physic hath provided too a salve for every sore. But my true friend, once lost, no art can well supply. Then what a death is this to hear! Damon, my friend, must die. My mouth refuse the food that should my limbs sustain. Let sorrow sink into my breast and ransack every vein. Ye furies all at once, on me your torment try. Why should I live, since that I hear Damon, my friend, must die? Gripe me, you greedy grief, and present pangs of death, you sisters three with cruel hands, with speed come stop my breath. Shrine me in clay alive, some good men stop my eyes. O death, come now, seeing I hear, Damon, my friend, must die.
And so the song ends, music stops playing, and you can return to normal speech.
In vain I call for death, which heareth not my complaint. But what wisdom is this in such extremity to faint? Multum juvat in re mala animus bonus. I will to the court myself to make friends, and that presently. I will never forsake my friend in time of misery. But do I see Stefano, amazed, come hither to run?
And here entereth Stefano.
Oh, Pythias, Pythias, we are all undone. Mine own ears have sucked in mine own sorrow. I heard Dionysius swear that Damon should die tomorrow.
How camest thou so near the presence of the king that thou mightst hear Dionysius speak of this thing?
By friendship I got into the court, where in great audience I heard Dionysius with his own mouth give this cruel sentence, by these express words, that Damon the Greek, that crafty spy, without further judgment tomorrow should die. Believe me, Pythias, with these ears I heard it myself.
Then how near is my death also? Oh, woe is me! Ah, my Damon, another myself, shall I forego thee?
Sir, there is no time of lamenting now. It behooveth us to make means to them which can do much with Dionysius, that he be not made away, or his cause be fully heard. For we see by evil report things may be to princes far worse than they be. But lo, yonder comes Aristippus, in great favor with King Dionysius. Entreat him to speak a good word to the king for us, and in the mean season I will to your lodging to see all things safe there.
To that I agree, but let us slip aside to hear their talk.
And here entereth Aristippus for some overhearingness.
Here is a sudden change indeed, a strange metamorphosis. The court is clean altered. Who would have thought this? Dionysius, of late so pleasant and merry, is quite changed now into such melancholy that nothing can please him. He walketh up and down, fretting and chaffing on every man. He doth frown, insomuch that when I in pleasant words begin to play, so sternly he frowned on me, and knit me up so short, I perceive it is not safe playing with lions when it please them. If you claw where it itch not, you shall disease them, and so perhaps get a clap. My own proof taught me this, that it is very good to be merry and wise. The only cause of this hurly-burly is Carisophus, that wicked man, which lately took Damon for a spy, a poor gentleman, and hath incensed the king against him so despitefully that Dionysius hath judged him tomorrow to die. I've talked with Damon, whom, though in words I found very witty, yet was he more curious than wise in viewing this city. But truly, for aught I can learn, there is no cause why so suddenly and cruelly he should be condemned to die. However it be, this is the short and the long. I dare not gainsay the king, be it right or wrong. I'm sorry, and that is all I may or can do in this case. Naught availeth persuasion where froward opinion taketh place.
Sir, if humble suits you would not despise, then bow on me your pitiful eyes. My name is Pythias, in Greece well known, a perfect friend to that woeful Damon, which now a poor captive in this court doth lie, by the king's own mouth, as I hear, condemned to die. For whom I crave your mastership's goodness, to stand his friend in this his great distress. Naught hath he done worthy of death, but very fondly, being a stranger, he viewed this city, for no evil practice but to feed his eyes. But seeing Dionysius is informed otherwise, my suit is to you, when you see time and place, to assuage the king's anger and to purchase his grace, in which doing you shall not do good to one only, but you shall further two, and that fully.
My friend, in this case I can do you no pleasure.
Sir, you, sir, in the court, as fame doth tell.
I am of the court indeed, but none of the council.
As I hear, none is greater in favor with the king than you at this day.
The more in favor, the less I dare say.
It is a courtier's praise to help strangers in misery.
To help another and hurt myself, it is an evil point of courtesy.
You shall not hurt yourself to speak for the innocent.
He is not innocent whom the king judgeth nocent.
Why, sir, do you think this matter past all remedy?
So far past that Dionysius hath sworn Damon tomorrow shall die.
This word my trembling heart cutteth in two. Ah, sir, in this woeful case that wist best I do.
Best to content yourself when there is no remedy. He is well relieved that foreknoweth his misery. Yet, if any comfort be, it resteth in Eubulus, the chiefest counselor about King Dionysius, which pitieth Damon's case in this great extremity, persuading the king from all kind of cruelty.
The mighty gods preserve you for this word of comfort. Taking my leave of your goodness, I will now resort to Eubulus, that good counselor. But hark, methink I hear a trumpet blow.
The king is at hand. Stand close in the press. Beware, if he know you are friend to Damon, he will take you for a spy also. Farewell, I dare not be seen with you.
And we'll pause there. I apologise. There should have, of course, been a at that point. The king is at hand. He's coming in a moment. Okay, lots and lots and lots of really interesting things there. So yes, we get a song. It's partly so that Stefano exits and then comes back on again, and also for a character thing of really getting that sense of Pythias, Damon. They're like that. They're very much like that. We've had that expressed up to a point where you get this this constant refrain. Damon, my friend, must die. Depending on how this is done. And so Pythias is singing, regals play, so they're little pipe organs, aren't they? Is there something along those lines?
Yes,
Liza.
A regal was, a portable reed organ. They make a sort of honking sound, like and often so it's a sort of sad, doleful, whiny sound, and often they're used for mourning or for sinister things. It's interesting that he should specify a regal for this song. Yeah, I think it would work very well.
Because it's quite effective, because they're coming on directly after the arrest, out one door in from Damon exits one way and they presumably enter another. And they're going through the problems, and it's interesting. With Pythias as this ridiculously long line, which feels like it should actually be two, and with a massive pause in it. It's a force I must now faint. It just feels like there should be an action that goes with that, and that there should be that almost as though that's the cue for a pre the first note, sort of for the music to actually start playing at that point, or something like that. I'm just sort of spitballing here. Thoughts from the room about anything that we've just done? Lois.
Well, of course, this is the point where we see the real test of Aristippus and the sort of philosophy that he described at the beginning of the play. It is his attempt to be a philosophical courtier going to work, or is he just going to end up being totally cowardly and unable to stand up to Dionysius?
Yes, he does come across a lot better here than I felt he was playing earlier, because he was still sort of playing games earlier, and where he fit in with things. But it's that question of the to help another and hurt myself. It's one thing to say you're going to help and be and he's spoken to this person. He's a nice chap. He's obviously a bit stupid. This Damon, for saying really silly things out loud. Helen, you're muted at the moment.
Yeah. One of the things that I noted through a lot of that, while marveling at Pythias's lack of commitment to action, was that there was a lot of talk of making friends. Stefano had got in to see the king by making friends. They were talking about they don't have any friends yet, but they must make some. Making friends is usually a euphemism for bribing people. When an organization puts in their accounts £200 for making friends, it's where it's come from.
Oh, lovely. Lynn.
So my question would be, though, Helen, would that have been perceived as bribery, or maybe more like that's just what you do? You give people gifts in order as a token of your to establish a friendship. I mean, we think of that as bribery, and we think of it as dishonest and as corruption. But would it have had that kind of negative valence, or not at the time?
It's a bit ambivalent. It was officially frowned upon, but actually some jobs you paid to have that job because of the opportunity it gave you for bringing in enormous quantities of friends and bribes. So it was fairly well recognized, but it was officially frowned on. This meant that if ever the government wanted to see to your downfall, they could bring in all these bribes as collateral offences.
Of corruption, even though it was widely
even though everybody was doing it. I've only found one man who didn't want it, and there were letters written about how amazing he was because he wouldn't take bribes.
I mean, it does. It's a really good question, because it's the question of is it I made friends, and he makes a very overt gesture about I bribed my way into the palace, or is it understood? How exceptional that is actually a really good question about what this play is saying at that point, and that makes a difference to how we stage it. So it's a really good question, which I think is probably going to be director's choice, but it's a really good thing to note, because I really didn't twig that at all. Helen. Not Helen, Alan, sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I must admit, I would have thought in Stefano's case, he is going to make that gesture, because we've actually seen that he is the one who's got real world experience, whereas the two posh boys, I've been thinking of as Tim Nice but Dim.
Which it's also interesting. Stefano says, yonder cometh Aristippus, entreat, speak a good word to the king for us. In the meanwhile, I'm going to the lodgings to make sure everything's safe. Now, is that I'm going to lodgings to make sure everything is safe on a practical level, or is that I'm going to the lodgings so that I'm as far away from you as possible? Question mark. It's a question, again, of motivation, of why people are doing things and why people are saying things. Lois?
Yeah, well, he might be aware of what we found out at the end of the last session, which is that Carisophus is also on his way to the lodgings to see what he can grab.
Yes, secure your movables, because they are travellers. They've got what they stand up in. Especially if their lodgings are raided. Helen.
Yes, I mean, one of the things he would do if he was being sensible would be, firstly, any movable valuables he would secrete, and secondly, he would burn all correspondence, just as a matter of just precautionary.
See Act 2 of Game of Chess. There's a great deal of letter burning. I think it was Act 2. What was the other thing? It's also, Pythias is also appreciating that his own life is in danger. He's framing it as both our lives are in danger, but he is also, that because they are one. But there is a sense that this could spread very easily to him as well. Lynsey.
Yes, I just was struck by this sort of kind of call and response, rhyming couplet, split dialogue section between Aristippus and Pythias, and it may be just because, as mentioned, I haven't done a lot of the afternoon sessions. It may be that there's plenty of this earlier in the play that I haven't been aware of, or other things, but it just suddenly struck me because I'm used to in sort of a lot of the material that we've been looking at, just kind of pretty much giant chunks of speech. The person talks for quite a while and then someone else talks for quite a while, and this sort of call and response that happened was really quite striking to me.
You're right, it is, and especially since Pythias, who's the one who's asking the favor, speaks a line, and then Aristippus, declining the favor, speaks a line to it. It's sort of, it is a wonderful sort of antiphony, and I think you're right to flag it up. We don't see, Robert, I can't recall seeing things like this very often. You can correct me if I'm wrong.
It does seem to be a little stylistic thing that we get a roundabout here that has popped up in a few plays that we've done, where it's a quite explicit call and response game. Peel does it a few times, and it might be connected with these people are also working on music. That we've got these call and response games, and then the aria game that you could say are long speeches and that kind of thing. So it might be. I'm sure there are other examples that we can drag out, but it does seem the 1560s, 70s. We've had a few examples of this around about here. Actually, I think we had it in N-Town the other day. Actually, there was almost explicitly a call and response thing coming out, but again, that might actually literally have been music. Lois, then Alan.
Yeah, I think it's almost when it's in this type of context where it's an ethical argument. I think it's Seneca who certainly wrote that kind of thing a lot, and you get it a great deal in later plays, and especially after the Senecan translations were coming out. And it's very effective because since it's so patterned, it really gives the effect of an equally balanced argument, and then obviously whoever ends it really does get the last word in both senses.
Yes, we haven't as of yet been doing that much material that is was not actually performed per se. So but you're absolutely right that we're banging on Senecan translation coming out, one or two at a time, but soon en masse. So yeah, that's a big stylistic point. Alan.
Yeah, I don't remember call and response yesterday's session in the first third of the play. There were actually some quite long speeches, certainly in the opening sequence. Aristippus and his opponent both had significant length speeches, bigging themselves up basically. And that was part of the world building that, as Robert described it earlier.
Yeah, we got long speeches, and then we got what we might just call normal dialogue. There wasn't anything as obviously patterned as this in the first third. Any other thoughts before we move forward, Liza?
Yeah, one. Apologies if we have covered this yesterday, but we are dealing with some real historical people here. That Dionysius of Syracuse, there were two tyrants of Syracuse, or kings of Syracuse, who were famous as tyrants, both named Dionysius, father and son. I think this looks like it's probably Dionysius the Elder, but who knows? I don't know if we've had it specified in the first half if it's Dionysius the Elder or younger, if there are tells whether it's a young spoilt prince or an old tyrant. Aristippus is also real. He was a philosopher from Cyrene in modern-day Libya. I think modern-day Libya, certainly ancient Libya. And his school of philosophy was that you should attempt to extract pleasure from all things in life, which isn't quite as hedonistic as it sounds. He also wrote about being taken prisoner and trying to extract pleasure from that situation, and so it was more sort of making the best of things. But here, of course, he seems to be portrayed as simply pursuing pleasure at the cost of anything else.
Yeah, we did vaguely touch on it, the historicity of it all last time, but we didn't go into it in that level of detail, which is good. I've got a note that it's number one, not number two. Though whether Aristippus is associated with number one or number two, and whether there's a weird conflation going on, there's another footnote on that as well. So yeah, there is a connection with things that people in the audience would possibly know. So that gives this a different air that I don't think today we would have. I don't think the general knowledge on this figure is desperately high today. Perhaps that's a shame. Discuss. Okay, we'll move forward as we have the entrance of the king. So eyes down for a wonderful selection of people. Enter King Dionysius, Eubulus the counsellor, and Gronno the hangman.
Gronno, do my commandment. Strike off Damon's irons by and by, then bring him forth. I myself will see him executed presently.
Oh, my king, your commandment will I do speedily.
Eubulus, thou hast talked in vain, for sure he shall die. Shall I suffer my life to stand in peril of every spy?
That he conspired against your person, his accuser cannot say. He only viewed your city, and will you for that make him away?
What would he have done? The guess is great. He minded me to hurt, that came so slyly to search out the secret estate of my court. Shall I still lie in fear? No, I will cut off some inch betime, lest than to my father danger too high they climb.
Yet have the mighty gods immortal fame assigned to all worldly princes which in mercy be inclined.
Let fame talk what she list, so I may live in safety.
The only mean to that is to use mercy.
A mild prince the people despiseth.
A cruel king the people hateth.
Let them hate me, so they fear me.
That is not the way to live in safety.
My sword and power shall purchase my quietness.
That is sooner procured by mercy and gentleness.
Dionysius ought to be feared.
Better for him to be well beloved.
Fortune maketh all things subject to my power.
Believe her not, she is a light goddess. She can laugh and lower.
A king's praise standeth in the revenging of his enemy.
A greater praise to win him by clemency.
To suffer the wicked to live, it is no mercy.
To kill the innocent, it is great cruelty.
Is Damon innocent, which so craftily undermined Carisophus? To understand what he could of King Dionysius, which surveyed the haven and each bulwark in the city, where battery might be laid, what way best to approach? Shall I suffer such a one to live, that worketh me such despite? No, he shall die, then I am safe. A dead dog cannot bite.
But yet, O mighty king, my duty bindeth me to give such counsel as with your honour may best agree. The strongest pillars of princely dignity I find is justice with mercy and prudent liberality. The one judgeth all things by upright equity, the other rewardeth the worthy, flying each extremity, as to spare those which offend maliciously. It may be called no justice, but extreme injury. So upon suspicion of each thing not well proved, to put to death presently whom envious flattery accused, it seemeth of tyranny, and upon what fickle ground all tyrants do stand. Athens and Lacedaemon can teach you if it be rightly scanned, and not only these citizens, but who curiously seeks the whole histories of the world, not only of Romans and Greeks, shall well perceive all tyrants the ruinous fall, their state uncertain, beloved of none, but hated of all. Of merciful princes to set out the passing felicity, I need not, enough of that, even these days, to testify. They live devoured of fear, their sleeps are sound, they dread no enemy. They are feared and loved, and why? They rule with justice and mercy, extending justice to such as wickedly from justice have swerved, mercy unto those who in opinion of simpleness of mercy deserved. Of liberty naught, I say, but only this thing, liberty upholdeth the state of a king, whose large bountifulness ought to fall to this issue, to reward none but such as deserve it for virtue, whose merciful justice, if you would follow, unprofit liberty. Neither the caterpillars of all courts, effruge, consumere nati, parasites with wealth puffed up, should not look so high, not yet, for this simple fact poor Damon should die.
With pain mine ears have heard this vain talk of mercy. I tell thee, fear and terror defendeth kings only. Till he be gone, whom I suspect, how shall I live quietly, whose memory with chilling horror fills my breast day and night violently? My dreadful dreams of him bereaves my rest. On bed I lie, shaking and trembling, as one ready to yield his throat to Damon's sword. This quaking dread nothing but Damon's blood can stay. Better he die than I to be tormented with fear alway. He shall die, though Eubulus content not thereto. It is lawful for kings, as they list, all things to do.
We'll just pause there at the end of that little philosophical debate about what's the best way of securing your kingdom, by being really horrible or being nice. Discuss.
Infamy, infamy. They've all got it infamy.
Well, I was going to say, my memory of I Claudius came flaking back, and I think Tiberius is in that is going, let them hate me so long as they obey me, I think is one of his maxims that he goes through several during the course of his reign as emperor. Helen.
Yeah, I thought it was Suetonius ascribed it to Caligula, but I imagine they all said it.
Yeah, well, I'm going via Robert Graves, so I'm sure it's mixed up with all of them.
Of course he is. Of course he is. Yeah, it's I had something else to say, which has completely disappeared from my mind entirely, and I'm running back over it. But I'll talk to someone else.
Okay, Lynsey.
Yes, I mean, interestingly, having flagged this unusual call and response antiphonal sort of argument, here we instantly have another one. And I don't know if this has been discussed before either, but I just think, is this all Old Testament, New Testament back and forth? I mean, is that what we're seeing effectively, an illustration of the God of vengeance and the God of mercy?
Oh, Lois?
It really is almost pure Seneca. There's it's almost a translation, I think, of something. I think it's in a play which actually isn't by Seneca. It's Octavia, because Seneca appears in that as a character. But I think it was thought for some reason to be by Seneca. But you see it again in, I think it's Marston's Antonio's Revenge, where there's a dialogue almost exactly like that, and it just keeps turning up. I mean, the what is a good ruler, and usually it is done in Stichomythia as if a kind of homage to Seneca.
Yeah, I do wonder if it's something associated with teaching, because it does keep turning up in boys' plays. So again, that's Marston's plays for a boys' company. So I'm just wondering if that's just a thing that that gets picked up more there than elsewhere, in quite so formal a style. Though that might be a gross exaggeration based on too little evidence. So I'll just put that caveat in. Helen.
I've remembered what I was going to say. The Eubulus talks about whole histories of all the world, not only of Romans and Greeks, but in fact, this is for the benefit of the audience and not for the characters there, because as far as the characters are there, the Romans have not yet really put in much of an appearance. We're still in the Greek bit. I mean, what this is, 400 BC, somewhere around there?
I think I have a footnote date on that somewhere. Carry on.
Yeah. So, you know, the whole idea of classical history as being a unit that can be studied at school, there's a word for this involving chronology, anachronous, whatever.
Yeah. We've yes, it is around it was around 400 BC. Yes, absolutely, bang on the money. We also have a mention of Christmas as well at one point, so you know it's all going well. That was yesterday. Time is an illusion. Alan.
Yeah, and we also had at least one instance of By Our Lady.
Yes, so you know, commonplaces and things like that are being thrown in all over the shop. Always nice to have caterpillars at the court. Always nice to have.
Yes,
that always pops up nicely. What was I was going to say? Other thoughts in the room while I figure out what I was going to say. It was nice to meet the hangman. Said a lot there.
I did notice. I mean, they were only just talking about Damon being executed tomorrow, and now all of a sudden he's going to be executed presently.
Well, that
Maybe
might
it's
not
tomorrow.
that might not be a time thing. That might just be he's just that explosive a character that he's just no, I'm going to do it now. So it might be that. But time in this is very telescoped at times. You know, people walk off and then they walk back on, or somebody else walks on, and immediately time has jumped. So it's not hanging about. Helen.
Yeah, I have remembered now really what I was going to say. We've got to make some sort of decision about just how mad Dionysius is. I mean, is it shredded wheat scenery so he can eat it? Or is it, you know, I mean, he does seem to be really in full tyrant mode.
Yeah, but he is on some level having a debate with Eubulus. I mean, he hasn't killed Eubulus yet. I mean, that's what we'd expect from some of the other tyrant kings that we've had. You know, if you defy the king, you tend to die quite quickly. So there is a question there on that front. I'm trying to remember what Eubulus, the name represents and means, because we had that discussion during Gilbertook, and I can't remember what it was. Maybe someone will pick that up. Lynn.
Yeah, good something. You is good, isn't it?
Yeah. I think it's just good counselor, isn't it? Or something along those lines.
I mean, the question of how unhinged is the king is a really interesting one, because the passage where he talks about I can't sleep at night because I'm worried about this guy spying on me. That's a little paranoid. That, like, what is your evidence for that? But on the other hand, he makes some not admirable but kind of cogent arguments that that no, mercy is weakness, a strong arm method of government is the most secure. We probably tend to disagree with that now, but that is an argument that strength is strength, and that's the way to hang on to power. So sometimes he seems to be making a political argument that has a kind of intellectual foundation, and sometimes he just seems like paranoid.
Liza.
People would recognize also in this echoes of Machiavelli, I think, who not precisely his writings, but what people thought of his writings and his philosophy was a sort of bugbear to Elizabethans. In this case, in the character of Dionysius, his desire to be feared comes from his own fear. He's got, the tyrant's paranoia. Not that has any modern parallels with anyone whatsoever.
Yeah, I have to say I was thinking of Machiavelli a lot during this sequence of just actually about how you rule and how you keep control. I mean, you're almost into a trap. He's almost trapped in the thing. If we're going to go with he's not mad, that having stated he is a no holds barred strongman, he can't just let him go, because the moment he starts letting people go, then his whole argument for being in charge crumbles, basically, the moment you start having exceptions. And that's sort of the trap that strong men get caught in, because the only direction you can go is more extreme and more aggressive and more tyrannous. Of course, he could be both. Let's put that option out there. Lois.
Yeah, to some extent, I think he's the sort of textbook example of a tyrant. I mean, I think that the account of Richard III that was given in Thomas More and others was based on Tacitus's account of Tiberius. And there was a general notion that if you were a tyrant, you couldn't sleep, you had horrible dreams, your hand was always on your sword because you thought someone was going to attack you. And I think he's kind of living up to all of that.
Yeah, it's also a question for an actor of precisely how far you go, this early on in the life of the character. I don't know how much he's on in the play, but he's very much the sort of level that Herod is in the end of the tragedy of Marion. By Act 5, he's completely doolally. And there is a possibility that he's already at that level at the beginning of his first appearance, and that's sort of not necessarily a great place to start a performance, but it really depends on how much stage time he's going to get, which we will discover a bit more evidence, I think. The scene continues as our favorite characters, Gronno the hangman and Snap the officer, bring in Damon, and Pythias meeteth him by the way.
Oh, my Damon.
Oh, my Pythias, seeing death must part us, farewell forever.
Oh, Damon, my sweet friend.
Away from the prisoner, what a priest have we here?
As you commanded, O mighty king, we have brought Damon.
And go to, make ready. I will not stir out of this place till I see his head stroken off before my face.
It shall be done, sir. Because your eyes have made such ado, I will knock down this your lantern and shut up your shop window too.
O mighty king, whereas no truth my innocent life can save, but that so greedily you thirst my guiltless blood to have, albeit even in thought I had not aught against your person. Yet now I plead not for life, nay, will I crave your pardon. But seeing in Greece my country, where well I am known, I have worldly things fit for mine alliance when I am gone, to dispose them ere I die, if I might obtain leisure, I would account it, O king, for a passing great pleasure. Not to prolong my life thereby, for which I reckon not this, but to set my things in a stay. And surely I will not miss, upon the faith which all gentlemen ought to embrace, to return again at your time to appoint, to yield my body here in this place. Grant me, O king, such time to dispatch this inquiry, and I will not fail when you appoint, even here, my life to pay.
A pleasant request, as though I could trust him absent, whom in no wise I cannot trust being present. And yet, though I swear the contrary, do that I require. Give me a pledge for thy return, and have thine own desire. He is as near now as he was before.
There is no surer nor greater pledge than the faith of a gentleman.
It was wont to be, but otherwise now the world doth stand. Therefore, do as I say, else presently yield thy neck to the sword. If I might with my honour, I would recall my word.
Stand to your word, O king, for kings ought nothing say, but that they would perform in perfect deeds alway. A pledge you did require, when Damon his suit did mave, for which with heart and stretched hands most humble thanks I give. And that you may not say, but Damon had a friend that loves him better than his own life, and will do to his end, take me, O mighty king, my life I pawn for his, strike off my head, if Damon hap his day to miss.
What art thou that chargest me with my words so boldly here?
I am Pythias, a Greek born, which hold Damon my friend full dear.
Too dear, perhaps, to hazard thy life for him. What fondness moveth thee?
No fondness at all, but perfect amity.
Mad kind of amity. Advise thyself well. If Damon fail at his day, which shall be justly appointed, wilt thou die for him, to me his life to pay?
Most willingly, O mighty king. If Damon fail, let Pythias die.
Thou seemest to trust his words, that fawnest thy life so frankly.
What Damon saith, Pythias believeth assuredly.
Take heed for your life. Worldly men break promise in many things.
Though worldly men do so, it never hap among friends.
What call'st thou friends? Are they not men? Is this not true?
Then they be, but such men as love one another only for virtue.
For what virtue dost thou love this spy, this Damon?
For that virtue which yet to you is unknown.
Eubulus, what shall I do? I would dispatch this Damon fain, but this foolish fellow so chargeth me that I may not call back my word again.
The reverend majesty of a king stands chiefly in keeping his promise. What you have said, this whole court beareth witness. Save your honour, whatsoever you do.
Saving mine honour, I must forbear my will. Go to, Pythias, seeing thou tookest me at thy word, take Damon to thee. For 2 months he is thine. Unbind him, I set him free. Which time once expired, if he appears not the next day by noon, without further delay, thou shalt lose thy life, and that full soon. Whether he die by the way, or lie sick in his bed, if he return not then thou shalt either hang or lose thy head.
For this, O mighty king, I yield immortal thanks. Oh, joyful day!
Gronno, take him to thee, bind him, see him kept in safety. If he escape, assure thyself for him thou shalt die. Eubulus, let us depart to talk of the strange thing within.
I follow.
And exit the king, Eubulus, etc.
Damon, that servest the gods well today, be thou of comfort. As for you, sir, I think you will be hanged in sport. You heard what the king said. I mun keep you safely. By cock, so I will. You shall rather hang than I. Come your way.
My Damon, farewell. The gods have thee in keeping.
Oh, my Pythias, my pledge, farewell. I part from thee weeping. But joyful, at my day appointed, I will return again, when I will deliver thee from all trouble and pain. Stefano will I leave behind me to wait upon thee in prison alone. And I, whom fortune hath reserved to this misery, will walk home. Ah, my Pythias, my pledge, my life, my friend, farewell.
Farewell, my Damon.
Loath am I to depart, sith sobs my trembling tongue doth stay. O music, sound my doleful plaints when I am gone my way.
And exit Damon.
I'm glad he's gone. I'd almost wept too. Come, Pythias, so God help me, I'm sorry for thy foolish case. Wilt thou venture thy life for a man so fondly?
It is no venture, my friend is just, for whom I desire to die.
Here's a madman. I tell thee, I have a wife whom I love well, and if I would die for her, would I were in hell. Wilt thou do more for a man than I would for a woman?
Yea, that I will.
Then come on your ways, you must to prison haste. I fear you will repent this folly at last.
That shall thou never see. But, O music, as my Damon requested thee, sound out thy doleful tunes in this time of calamity.
And music, which we'll come to, and exits, etc. So, the drama's ramping up now. You see, it's a slow burn. You know, they build up the world, always in prison. Oh, and now no, it's prisoner swap. Will he get back in time? Oh, the tension. It's important, I think, for the actor playing Pythias, you know, for when he stands up and says to the king, I've got an idea, because, you know, knowing this king, he could just easily kill both of them at that moment. You know, that's a really high stakes moment to put his head in that noose. Not just because it might not work, but they might both die. So there's a really nice moment there in that. It's interesting, Dionysius, thou shalt either hang or lose thy head. Is there a class distinction, the question on that about what kind of death you're going to get there, or is that just for sake of words? I'm just that was just an interesting thing I was just wondering about.
It may be for the sake of the rhyme.
Yeah. Just for the sake of the line rather than that it actually meant anything. Alan?
I was just thinking it probably is for the rhyme, but aristos tended to be executed common criminals hung.
And it's nice that Damon gets, it's that question of, my lord, I've got affairs to settle. And is he being disingenuous during this? You know, if you could just let me leave the country for a while, I'll be back, honest. I just need to sort out my affairs. Knowing Damon, he's probably entirely in earnest and fine.
I mean, I don't know, but I did think it was interesting that he very clearly was not appealing either for his innocence or for mercy. It was purely practical. It's like, yeah, absolutely kill me, because I know I can't reason with you on the basis of my innocence. And that, and I have never wronged you in thought, word, and deed. But I have got, a few things to, I've got to write my will, basically. So quite interesting.
Yeah. Helen?
There's also the horse may talk thing. You know, the story about the king, and the king said he wouldn't execute him if he could make his horse talk within a year. And they said, why on earth did you take this on? And he said, well, I may die in a year, or the king may die in a year, or the horse may talk. You know, I mean, it's
worth
you never know what may happen in the time he is given. But I think that Dionysius is very puzzled by Pythias, and that's what all this backward and forward is about, is that Dionysius just doesn't understand this sort of altruism.
Yes. Lynn.
Yeah, I was going to sort of piggyback on what Helen said. I got the sense that even though Damon doesn't say explicitly, that evidence that will exonerate me may come to light in the next couple of months. I kind of feel like that's part of what's going on. That sort of gives us time in the plot for things to sort out it happily rather than fatally. So that's part of what's going on here structurally, is like we need time. Who is it that says tragedy is comedy plus time? That if you've got too much time, your comedy turns to tragedy. But here, if you give your tragedy a little time, it can work itself out happily. So even though Damon says, "Oh, I'll just come back and get killed after I get my affairs in order," we still have a reprieve that might actually make all the difference in the long run.
And we've got here, of course, more ramping up of that affection between Pythias and Damon. That this as the play, I'm sure, frames it, but we may in a modern production look at it differently. This platonic love affair between these two men, and the music's feeding into this. This is the second cue for more mournful music. The sadness of this is being fed to us in, as a technical term, melodramatically. We are being given music to heighten emotion, which is, an interesting effect that is being used for effect. Other thoughts? No, we're all just taking it in. We're just taking in the drama. That's fine. That's fine. So scene change, as it were. I think everybody has exited now. We have music to cover the scene change, cued in by Damon's exit earlier, and here the Regals play a morning song, and Damon now cometh back in again. He's in mariner apparel again, so he's dressed like a sailor, and Stefano with him.
Weep no more, Stefano, this is but destiny. Had not this happened, yet I know I am born to die. Where or in what place, the gods know alone, to whose judgment myself I commit. Therefore leave off thy moan, and wait upon Pythias in prison till I return again, in whom my joy, my care, and life doth only remain.
Oh, my dear master, let me go with you, for my poor company shall be some small comfort in this time of misery.
Oh, Stefano, hast thou been so long with me, and yet dost not know the force of true amity? I tell thee once again, my friend and I are but one. Wait upon Pythias, and think thou art with Damon, whereof I may not now discourse. The time passeth away. The sooner I am gone, the shorter shall be my journey. Therefore farewell, Stefano. Commend me to my friend Pythias, whom I trust to deliver in time out of this woeful case.
Farewell, my dear master, since your pleasure is so. Oh, cruel hap. Oh, poor Stefano. Oh, cursed Carisophus, that first moved this tragedy. But what a noise is this? Is all well within, trow ye? I fear all be not well within. I will go see. Come out, you weasel. Are you seeking eggs in Damon's chest? Come out, I say. Wilt thou be packing? By cock, you were best.
How durst thou, villain, to lay hands on me?
Out, sir knave, or I will send ye. Art thou not content to accuse Damon wrongfully, but wilt thou rob him also, and that openly?
The king gave me the spoil. To take mine own, wilt thou let me?
Thine own, villain? Where is thine authority?
I am authority of myself. Dost thou not know?
By Our Lady, that is somewhat. But have you no more to show?
What if I have not?
Then, for an earnest penny, take this blow. I shall bombast you, you mocking knave, shall put prone my purse for this time.
Jack, give me my sword and target.
I cannot come to you, master. This knave doth me let. Hold, master.
Away, jackanapes, else I will culfize you by and by. Ye slave, I will have my pennyworths of thee, therefore, if I die. About, villain!
Oh, citizens, help to defend me!
Nay, they will rather help to hang thee.
Good fellow, let us reason of the matter quietly. Beat me no more.
On this condition I will stay. If thou swear, as thou art an honest man, thou wilt say nothing to the king of this when I am gone.
I will say nothing. Here is my hand, as I am an honest man.
Then say on thy mind. I've taken a wise oath on him, have I not, trow ye, to trust such a false knave upon his honesty? As he is an honest man, quoth ye, he may betray all to the king, and break his oath for this never a whit. But, my Frannion, I tell you this one thing. If you disclose this, I will devise such a way that whilst thou livest, thou shalt remember this day.
You need not devise that, for this day is printed in my memory. I warrant you, I shall remember this beating till I die. But, seeing of courtesy, you have granted that we should talk quietly. Methinks in calling me a knave, you do me much injury.
Why so, I pray thee heartily?
Because I am the king's man. Keeps the king any knaves?
He should not, but what he doth, it is evident by thee, and as far as I can learn or understand, there is none better able to keep knaves in all the land.
Oh, sir, I am a courtier. When courtiers shall hear tell how you have used me, they will not take it well.
Nay, all right courtiers will ken me thank. And wot ye why? Because I handled a counterfeit courtier in this kind so finely. What, sir? All are not courtiers that have a counterfeit show. In a troop of honest men, some knaves may stand, ye know, such as by stealth creep in under the color of honesty, which sort under that cloak do all kinds of villainy. A right courtier is virtuous, gentle, and full of urbanity, hurting no man, good to all, devoid of villainy. But such as thou art, fountains of scurrility and vain delights, though ye hang by the court, ye are but flattering parasites, as well deserving the right name of courtesy as the coward knight the true praise of chivalry. I could say more, but I will not, for that I am your well-willer. In faith, Carisophus, you are no courtier, but a caterpillar, a sycophant, a parasite, a flatterer, and a knave. Whether I will or no, those names you must have. How well you deserve this, by your deeds it is known, for that so unjustly thou hast accused poor Damon, whose woeful case the gods help alone.
Sir, are you his servant that you pity his case so?
No, bum troth, goodman Grum. His name is Stefano. I am called Onifets, if needs you will know. Name beginneth to sift me, but I turn my name in and out. Cretizo cum cretense, to make him alout.
What mumble you with yourself, Master Onifets?
Oh, I'm reckoning with myself how I may pay my debts.
You paid me more than you did owe me.
Nay, upon a farther reckoning, I will pay you more, if I know either you talk of that is done, or by your sycophantical envy you prick forth Dionysius the sooner that Damon may die. I will so pay thee that thy bones shall rattle in thy skin. Remember what I've said. Onifets is my name.
And Stefano, or Anafet, exits. I think we've got a second instance of has Stefano who was the one we were discussing yesterday who used sort of colloquialism at one point? Was that Stefano or was that somebody else?
Carisophus, wasn't it?
All right, so that's
Yeah.
that's fine, because we've just had a class discussion here, which is interesting, and just the way Stefano uses bum troth, Goodman Grumb. Wonder, is he mocking him, or is that again just a quotation in the air kind of thing? There's a lot of business here. There's a lot of business where we just don't get any stage directions to really explain what's going on. I mean, it's relatively clear from the dialogue what's going on, but Stefano, in theory, is fighting off two people at one point, or at least blocking one of them, while beating the living daylights out of somebody else.
Yeah.
It's clear that the way he says, the citizens help to defend me. If he's talking to the audience at that point, and then Stefano says, they hate you. Basically, don't ask the audience for help. They hate you. They know what kind of person you are. So there's a really nice dynamic energy to what's going on here that it's quite difficult for us to get across at this moment. We didn't get an exit, again, explicit stage direction for the exit of Damon. And we're coming in with, as we said earlier, Carisophus is raiding their lodgings for movables, and Stefano is a good servant and beats the crap out of him. Liza first, not Liza first, Lois first, rather. Sorry.
Well, I just wondered. I mean, Jack says he can't possibly help Carisophus because he's being stopped, but maybe he doesn't particularly want to either. I mean, it seems difficult for Stefano to hold him off while at the same time beating Carisophus. So it may just be that Jack just says that.
Yeah, that's the odd element of that scene that I didn't quite get. So yeah, I mean, that's a decision I think we need to make in production. Lynn.
Yeah, this scene strikes me as quite unusual, where a lower status character physically beats up a higher status character, gets away with it, and the higher status character is so cowardly. He's like, all right, quit hitting me. He's basically intimidated and cowed by that. Super satisfying, but kind of weird that a servant level character gets to punch out a courtier and get away with it. So interesting.
Well, that was the question we were asking yesterday. Was, what class is this? He's in the court, but what is his background, and what status is he, and has he got a sort of affected quality to him that Stefano just sees straight through, because he knows he's a arse. Basically, he's got his number. He's had a quick bribe around the court to find out who everybody is, so he knows who this man is. So there's a really good question about, is the status genuine, or is it bought in? Alan, then Liza.
Yeah, I think yesterday we spotted in one of Aristopus' speeches that he was using semi-yokel language, which certainly led me to suppose that he was effectively an arrivist within the court structure who'd greased his way up the tree, whereas Aristippus came across from his language as being possibly more Aristo.
It's making that question about also the kind of court that Dionysius is pulling together. You have this the more respectable sort, and then you have the much less respectable sort. So there's all sorts of games potentially being played here, and what that means. Liza, then Helen.
Yeah, just that we're in some sort continuing the philosophical discussion of what a good courtier is. Again, there were books on this. There were handbooks on how to be a good courtier, which were read not only by courtiers. Just that because Carisophus addresses the point that he's a courtier and how dare a servant beat him, and Stefano says, "No, you're a false courtier, and good courtiers will thank me for beating you." So he's not saying all courtiers are terrible people, because that would put him, according to the norms of this time, in the wrong. But he's saying that the offshoot of tyranny is parasites and flatterers being advanced, and parasites and flatterers are always villains in these things, and always good, fair game for comeuppance.
Yes, we want to avoid the fountains of scurrility. Always good to have another callback for scurrility. It's very very in vogue word. I think we've encountered it in at least one other play, and I can't remember which one. But it's always good to hear. Helen, then Lynsey.
Yes, I think I was just looking at the mechanics of my character being beaten up. I think that there is a missing exit. Just before Carisophus says, "O citizens, help to defend me," after Stefano has said, "About villain," I think that whole speech of Stefano's, away Jackanapes, is said to Jack, and I think there's an exit Jack just before, "O citizens, help to defend me."
Yeah, so he deals with Jack, comes back to Carisophus. Yeah, yeah, I like that. I like that.
Grabs him by the scruff of the neck or the back of his tunic and effectively throws him off stage.
Or at least throws him out of the active fight. I mean,
Yeah.
he may not actually exit, but he's definitely out of the fight at that point, because he will re-engage with the action in a moment. But I like the idea of him sort of sneaking back on stage once it's all over. Lynsey.
Yes, just a small point related to fountains of squirrility. I also very much enjoyed the rhyme of well-willer with caterpillar. I think I may need to bring that into my life more.
Yeah. Yes, I think scurrility is not used enough. I will do a quick search now to find whichever texts it was in. Other thoughts? Helen.
Why is Stefano not giving his own name? Is it just on general principles, or does he actually think he's in some sort of danger?
Well, that was the mistake that Damon made. He gave his name and immediately was then attainted.
Ah.
So maybe it's part of the process. You have to go to Snap and say, right, I found this Damon chap. So if they draw up a warrant for his arrest, it won't be his correct name. That's my thinking.
Right. So Carisophus could try and get this Onifet's guy arrested, but they won't find him. Yeah, because he's actually Stefano. Gotcha.
Lois.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
I just very briefly, we're talking about class. I just want to go back actually to previous section because we didn't talk about Gronno, the hangman, who is given at least in part some sort of dialecty words occasionally, and is really quite a fun character. I quite liked Gronno. He was good.
Yeah, congratulations on the great accent.
Oh, I'm channeling my inner Barry Rutter. Well, he's from Hull too.
Yeah. I just love the way, turning to Damon, because your eyes have made such ado, I will knock down this your lantern and shut up your shop window too. He's as much a philosopher and poet as any of the other characters, is this hangman. Okay. We are not at the end of the scene. We have a teensy-weensy bit more scene to do before we move into another section, which we will not complete this session, but we will get into. So let's complete. The fight is with Stefano is over. He's exited, leaving his false name behind. Carisophus and either an emergent Jack or a getting up Jack, or Jack coming out from behind whichever rock he's crawled behind, will now take up the scene.
The sturdy knave is gone, the devil him take. He hath made my head, shoulders, arms, sides, and all to ache. Thou, whoreson, villain, boy, why didst thou wait no better? As he paid me, so will I not die thy debtor.
Master, why do you fight with me? I'm not your match, you see. You durst not fight with him that is gone, and will you wreak your anger on me?
Thou villain, by thee I have lost mine honour, beaten with a cudgel like a slave, a vagabond or a lazy lubber, and not given one blow again. Hast thou handled me well?
Master, I handled you not, but who did handle you very handsomely, you can tell.
Handsomely, thou crack rope.
Yea, sir, very handsomely. I hold you a groat. He handled you so handsomely that he left not one mote on your coat.
Oh, I had furked him trimly, thou villain, if thou hadst given me my sword.
It is better as it is, master, believe me, at a word. If he had seen your weapon, he would have been fiercer, and perhaps beat you worse. I speak it with my heart. You were never at the dealing of fence blows, but you had 4 away for your part. But your luck, you are a man good enough. But the Welsh Oliphant was a vengeance knave and rough. Master, you were best to go home and rest in your bed. Methink your cat waxeth too little for your head.
What? Doth my head swell?
Yea, as big as a cod's head, and bleeds too.
Oh, I am ashamed to show my face with this hue.
No shame at all. Men have been beaten far better than you.
I must go to the surgeons. What shall I say when I am addressing?
You may say truly you met with a knave's blessing.
And they exit. Just briefly going to pause there primarily for the Welsh. Is it a Welsh servant, or is he just pretending to be Welsh because of the name on that? Maybe is it a Welsh name? Any thoughts on this? I have no idea.
Be Welsh because it looks odd.
I was going to say that exact same. It's a name I don't recognize. Must be Welsh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's deficient in the L department, but apart from that, it would fit.
It would be interesting. I don't know if we have any. What if we know what company did this play, or was it written, Rob, for boys or for adults?
It was written for boys, so it's
Chapel
beginning.
Royal, I think you said.
It's one of them. It's Children of the Chapel. Yeah, so it's because he was the master of them. So yes.
So it wouldn't, the clown parts wouldn't have gone to any of the well-known clowns, because it would be interesting to see if there was a clown whose shtick was doing comedy Welsh people. Yeah. Anyway, always interesting to have little things that give you a hint towards potential performance practice.
Yeah, and the kids were not adverse to copying other people's performance, so it could actually be a sort of memory of the kind of performance that somebody else might give.
Yeah, well, these were choir boys. They were singers. The Welsh are a singing nation. It's not beyond the bounds of possibility you might have had Welsh choir boys.
Lois.
Well, usually Welsh roles are written as Welsh, though. I mean, they're written with P's instead of B's, and all sorts of indications of accent. I doubt that Stefano is meant to be sounding Welsh all the time. I mean, somebody would have commented on it, surely. Here's our wonderful Welsh servant that we picked up in Thrace.
Lynsey.
Have we had a scene before where a supposed courtier is dissed by 2 servants in a row?
No, I'm not sure. There's an awful lot of dissing by servants in this play. It has to be said. So yeah, that's a good question. I don't think so. Yeah. Okay. It was that's a very brief coda to the previous scene, as it were. Carisophus potentially is considerably more wounded, or is told he's more wounded than he is. Interesting question, actually. How far you go with is he actually covered in blood or not? Who knows? Other thoughts before we move forward? Helen.
It's a fairly common problem. I've got to take this injury to casualty. How on earth do I tell them I got it?
Yes, well, it depends. It depends how whether Stefano got hold of an implement, really, doesn't it? Lynn.
Yeah, we are certainly establishing Carisophus as someone completely despicable, that he is weak and cowardly enough to get beaten up by Stefano, and then turns around and punches down, and blames his own servant. This is everybody's fault but mine. Yeah, he really is. There's nothing to admire about it.
Yeah,
no potential connection to any political leader then, now, or any.
Absolutely not. And it is interesting that it's much clearer in this session, the disparity between Carisophus and Aristippus yesterday. You didn't immediately get that impression, and I think in performance you need to. So that's the thing we'd need to, when going back at the first third, is really creating a character that you see straight away. Because the prologue again was addressing that thing of what kind of characters you're presenting on stage, and the way that they're going to be performed, and so they are very much, I think, expected to be quite bold. The playing of these characters it's sort of intimated there. We have return of the antithesis of Carisophus. We have the return of Aristippus, who gets to do some scene-changing stand-up, I think is what we'll call this for the moment. I could be wrong.
By mine own experience, I prove true that many men tell. To live in court not beloved, better be in hell. What crying out, what cursing is there within of Carisophus, because he accused Damon to King Dionysius? Even now he came whining and crying into the court for the nonce, saying that one Onophetes had broke his knave's sconce. Which strange name, when they heard, every man laughed heartily, and I by myself scanned his name secretly, for well I knew it was some mad-headed child that invented this name, that the log-headed knave might be beguiled. In tossing it often with myself to and fro, I found out that Onophetes backwards spelled Stefano. I smiled in my sleeve, how to see by turning his name he dressed him, and how for Damon his master's sake with a wooden cudgel so blessed him. None pitied the knave, nor man nor woman, but all laughed him to scorn. to be thus hated of all, better unborn. Far better Aristippus hath provided, I trow, for in all the court I am beloved, both of high and low. I offend none, insomuch that women sing this to my great praise. Omnis Aristippum decuit color et locus et res. Yeah? But in all this jollity, one thing amazeth me. The strangest thing that ever was heard or known is now happened in that court by that Damon, whom Carisophus accused. Damon is now at liberty, for whose return his friend Pythias lieth in prison, alas, in great jeopardy. Tomorrow is the day, which day by noon, if Damon return not earnestly, the king hath sworn that Pythias should die, whereof Pythias hath intelligence very secretly, wishing that Damon may not return, till he hath paid his life for his friend. Hath it been heretofore ever said that any man for his friend would die so willingly? O noble friendship! O perfect amity! Thy force is here seen, and that very perfectly. The king himself museth hereat, yet he is far out of square, that he trusteth none to come near him, not even his own daughters will he have unsearched to enter his chamber, when he hath made barbers his beard to shave, not with knife or razor, for all edge tools he fears, but with hot burning nutshells they singe off his hairs. Was there ever man that lived in such misery? Well, I will go in, with a heavy and pensive heart too, to think that how Pythias, this poor gentleman, tomorrow shall die.
And he exits. And is it me? Have we just found the interval? It feels like a recap after a break, doesn't it? I mean, he is to a degree bridging the gap. Time has passed, la di da di da. But after the fight, that feels like a good place to end a first half. We're slightly past the halfway mark, so this is a good place to put it. It's very inviting for a modern audience, this, in the sense of we've got somewhere to put an interval, but people, and it's structured that we just have a brief recap of everything that's happened, so that you know where you are. Yeah, I'm liking that. I'm liking that. That invites me. It invites me in happily. Yeah, so we get a nice little pen portrait of things going on. He's figured out the name game because he's clever. He's popular. The women are quoting Horace at him, so that's always a good sign. And the king's getting more paranoid. He's not even letting his daughters near him, and the barbers not allowed not to use any actual sharp implements. Just to briefly mention the mention of his daughters, I should point out this is a play with absolutely no female characters at all. It is an entirely male-orientated play.
A very interesting suggestion for a barber shop, the use of hot nutshells.
Anyone want to do some experimental archaeology on this one?
No, thank you.
No, I think I'm not. I think I'm good. I think I'm good.
Not going to go there.
That's a video for YouTube, really, isn't it? And
Although there is a tradition of using flame in Turkish barbers.
Sorry, say again, Alan. Didn't catch that.
There is a tradition of using flame in Turkish barbers. Nose hair and ear hair are traditionally removed with flame in Turkish barber shops even now.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Singeing hairs off is yes. That's a very classical thing as well. Okay. Any additional thoughts about Aristippus apart from he's still good and filling in the plot there?
Yeah, I just looked at the first line of the next scene, and I think it's will rather than well.
Will. Yes, it is. Good call. Any other thoughts before we go on? And we'll probably read this through to the point when we break. This is the beginning of quite a long scene. We are splinching it down the middle, I'm afraid. So we may be all set up and no payoff, but I don't know how far we're going to get. So here entereth Jack and Will.
Will, by mine honesty, I will mar your monkey's face if you so fondly prate.
Jack, my betrothed, seeing you are without the court gate, if you play Jack Napes in mocking my master and despising my face, even here with Palatable I will you disgrace. And though you have a far better face than I, yet who is better man of us two these fists shall try, unless you leave your taunting.
Thou beganst first. Did thou not say even now that Carisophus, my master, is no man but a cow, and taking so many blows, and gave never a blow again?
I said so indeed. He is but tame ruffian. I can swear by his flask and twixt box and God's precious lady, and yet will be beaten with a faggot stick. These barking whelps were never good biters. Nay, yet great crackers were ever great fighters. But seeing you egg me so much, I will somewhat recite. I say, Carisophus, thy master is a flat-ringed parasite, gleaning away the street with a worthy in all the court. What tragedy hath he moved of late? The devil take him, he doth much hurt.
I pray you, what is Aristippus thy master? Is he not a parasite too? With scoffing and jesting in the court makes so much ado?
He is no parasite, but a pleasant gentleman full of courtesy. Thy master is a churlish lout, the air of a dung fowl, as void of honesty as thou art of honour.
Nay, as thou all needs be praising of my master still, in faith I must cool thee, my friend Dapper Will. Take this at the beginning.
Praise well, you winning. My palatable is as ready as yours.
By that mass, I will box you.
By cock, I will fox you.
Will, was I with you?
Jack, did I fly?
Alas, pretty cockerel, you're too weak.
In faith doting, Dottrell, you will cry creak.
And here entereth Snap.
Away, you crack ropes. Are you fighting at the court gate? And I take you here again, I will swinge you both. What?
Beshrew, snap the tipstaff.
So I just got to pause there, and he exits immediately.
Great part.
I beshrew, snap the tipstaff, the great knay's heart that hither did come. Had he not been, who had cried ere this, Victus, Victor, Victum. Seeing we have breathed ourselves, if we list, let us agree like friends and shake each other by the fist.
Content am I, for I'm not malicious, but on this condition that you talk no more, so broaden my master as you hear you have done. But you have, we hear. 'Tis cold I spy coming yonder.
Well, let us slip aside and view him well.
And here entereth Grim the collier, whistling.
What, devil? Ich ween the porters are drunk. Will they not duck the gate today to take in coals for the king's own mouth? Will nobody stir, I say? Ich might have lain 2 hours longer in my bed to tarry so long here that my teeth chatter in my head.
Well, after our falling out, wilt thou laugh merrily?
Ay, marry Jack, I pray thee heartily.
Follow me, and hem in a word now and then. What brawling knave is there at the court gate so early?
It is some brain-sick villain, I durst lay a penny.
Was it you, sir, that cried so loud, I trow, and bid us take in coals for the king's mouth even now?
'Twas I indeed.
Why, sir, how dare you speak such petty treason? Doth the king eat coals at any season?
Oh, here is a gay world. Boy now sets old men to school. I said well enough. What, Jack Sauce thinks Jam a fool? A bakehouse, buttery hatch, kitchen and cellar. Do they not say, for the king's mouth?
What then, goodman collier?
What then? Seeing without coals they cannot finely dress the king's meat. May I not say, take in coals for the king's mouth, though coals he do not eat?
James Christ, came ever from a collier an answer so trim? You are learned, are you not, Father Grim?
Grim is my name indeed, I'm not learned, and yet the king's collier, this 40 wintage have been to the king a servitor. Though I be not learned, yet jam other wit enough, all and some.
So it seems you have so much mother wit that you lack your father's wisdom.
Master, I'm well beset. Here's a trim cast of merlins. What be you, my pretty cockerels, that ask me these questions?
Good faith, Master Grim, such merlins on your pouch may light. They are so quick of wing, they can carry it out of your sight. And though we are cockerels now, we shall have spurs one day, and shall perhaps be able to make a capon to your pay. But to tell you the truth, we are the porter's men, which early and late wait on such gentlemen as you to open the court gate.
Are you servants then?
Yea, sir, we are not pretty men.
Pretty men, quoth you. Nay, you are strong men, else you could not bear these breeches.
Are these such great hose? In faith, good man collier, you see where your nose, by mine honesty, I have but one lining in one hose, but 7 ells of rug.
This is but a little, yet it makes thee seem a great bug.
How say you, goodman collier? Can you find any fault here?
Nay, you should not find fault, marry. Here's trim gear. Alas, little knave, dost not sweat? Thou goest with great pain. These are no hose, but water buckets, I tell thee plain. Good for none, but such as have no buttocks. Did you ever see 2 such little Robin Ruddocks so laden with breeches? I'll say no more, lest I offend. Who invented these monsters first? Did it to a ghostly end, to have a mail ready to put in other folks' stuff. We see this evident by daily proof. One preached of late not far hence in no pulpit, but in a wain cart, that spake enough of this. But for my part, I'll say no more. Your own necessity in the end will force you to find some remedy.
Well, hold this railing knave with a talk when I'm gone. I will fetch him his filling ale for his good sermon.
And exit Jack.
Go thy way, Father Grim, gaily, while you do say, it is but young men's folly that list to play, and mask a while in the net of thy own device. When they come to your age, they will be wise.
Troth, but few such roysters come to my years at this day. They be cut off betimes ere they have gone half their journey. I will not tell why. Let them guess that can. I mean somewhat thereby.
And Jack re-enters, but that's as far as we're going to get. We've got the setup, we've got the antagonists lined up here. Lots of things going on here. Lots of things that are going to be quite difficult to get across to a modern audience, but lots of things that are really interesting. We've got a description of the costumery for Will and or Jack and or Will, or both of them. They're wearing ridiculously large hose. They have got so much fabric. So one of them has. I don't know if it's both of them. I was just sort of drowning in this sort of description. They're not hose. They're water buckets. These huge bags of material. It's interesting that we start the scene with the two servants of the two antagonistic courtiers continuing a sort of fight scene, but fighting in this different way. We've got the sort of gatekeeper, Snap does everything in this court, obviously, comes out and says, right, stop all this, and then immediately, I don't know if they both just go at him and he runs immediately away. And they're still fighting when Grim comes in, and then they decide, right, well, punching sideways is no fun at all. Let's punch down, shall we, guys? Yes, that'll be fun. And lo and behold, that's what happens, or is about to happen. We shall see. So many thoughts. Liza first. Muted at the moment.
There's a lot of clowns in large trousers are a thing we've seen before. Mumford in King Lear is the example that occurs to me, but I think there have been a couple other references to clowns in large breeches. The interesting thing is that Grim, who seems right now to be schooling them both, despite them thinking of him as a target of mockery, Grim says that he thinks that the trousers are so large because they want to steal other folks' stuff and put it in their trousers. And then he says, one preached of late, not far hence, in no pulpit, but in a wain cart that spoke enough of this. And if you preach from a wain cart, a wagon, that means you're being taken to be hanged. So that would be a thief that preached about this. Presumably he was also wearing large trousers. So I take a slight issue with the difficulty of presenting this to a modern audience. I agree that it's a little obscure on the page, but a lot of clown humor is visual humor and physical humor. And it would be interesting to do this or to workshop it on its feet, if such time comes as we can be in a room again. On its feet with props and just like comedy fighting.
Yeah, to a degree, I don't. I think it's actually a relatively minor problem. I think the idea of this scene is very, very clear. It's the specificity of certain lines and certain references that might just need work. I don't have a fundamental problem with the scene because it's quite clear who's for and who's against, and the general cut and thrust. But it is a lot less clear, as sometimes a lot of comic business can be in word terms. Yeah, Helen.
At the beginning, Jack and Will seem to be having a fight with shoes.
Oh, yes.
Pantables, yeah.
Pantables. They've both got a pantable and they seem to be having fencing with shoes.
Yeah.
Okay, I did not pick up on that. I really like that. That's nicely, suitably ridiculous. That I like. I like ridiculous. Alan.
I must admit, I'm seeing Will and Jack as being Eccles and Bluebottle, and Grim as being Neddy Seeger.
Well,
You know, Eccles and Bottle are having a fight semi-seriously, and then they spot another victim and gang up on him.
yeah, and the thing that I think Lois mentioned it the other day of, you know, these are the parts you might be giving to the younger members of the company. That, you know, these are actually quite cute small boys, and that's the kind of parts that they've got. I think that fits very well because they are described as being quite small, aren't they? It's not just, you know, the hose are ridiculously large on them, so that all fits quite well together with that.
I think you've also got an element of in it of my master's bigger than your master.
Oh yeah, it's an extension of the Cold War that's being fought between the two courtiers, because, you know, they're pretending to be the best of friends. Oh my dear, oh indeed. When of course they're both working to destroy the other. Other thoughts, Helen?
Yeah, I recently saw no, not recently. Before all this pandemic stuff, I saw
1853.
I saw a big exhibition of interiors of about this period. They weren't English, but they were European, and I was struck, though it wasn't in any of the literature, that every single household seemed to have a 10-year-old boy as a page of some sort. So it was very, very common to have a small boy who ran your errands and carried things for you. So I would put, you know, somewhere between 10 and 12 as a top.
Yeah. No, I think that fits very well, and it fits the what these characters are doing. It makes absolutely perfect sense. I mean, I don't think it would work if you made them much older than that. I think the scenes that they're in, you know, you've got to play them at sort of age, otherwise it probably doesn't work. Alan, then Lynn.
I'm thinking that we've almost got the same situations we had with Truppany in the play we did the other day. Of the young lad who's basically bottom of the pecking order and is going to be fetching and carrying for anybody who shouts, because he is bottom of the heap.
But looking decorative.
Oh,
I mean, they were all extremely fancily dressed.
Well, reflection of master status.
Yeah.
Yes, Master doesn't have to dress quite as ridiculously because he can make all his people dress ridiculously, and hence all weddings were no. Lynn.
Yeah, well, my understanding is that it was extremely common for older children, tweens, we call them, to go into service all up and down the social ladder. You went a step up, half a step up, and you went into service in that person's household, all the way from extremely poor people to people who were one rung below the royalty, and they became servants in the king's household. So it was very common to go into service.
Yeah.
And ladies in waiting were all over the place. And that continued to be true for quite some time. Samuel Pepys, 100 years later, talks about his difficulties with his boy, who was unhappy in Pepys' service, mysteriously, because, you know, Pepys, you know, beat him mercilessly when he did anything wrong. And then Pepys is all like, I wonder why he ran away. That's really weird. So, you know, having a boy who's basically your like early modern cell phone that communicated with you so that went on for at least another 100 years after this play was written.
Yeah, and going earlier, we did Fulgence and Lucrece and Nature a couple of weeks ago, you know, which is associated with a young Thomas More being part of a household. He may have performed in them, or he certainly was about at that sort of time. So, you know, with all classes were doing it. Lois.
Yeah, I was just going to say that I think there's a difference between these very young boys who are pages and who are beaten and treated the way children were treated, and the somewhat older kids who were sent into another household. I mean, it was a way of outsourcing the awful period of adolescence, really, sending them to somebody else to discipline, meanwhile disciplining somebody else's kids. I mean, it's I think there is an age difference here, and I don't think that these young gentlemen and ladies would have been treated in the same way that the boys are.
Excellent. We are just crossing the line into extra time. Yeah, it's the players really come alive today. We have paused at an awkward point. This is a long scene. We have the setup basically of what's going to happen to Grim the Collier. I'm sure it's going to be hilarious, or not. Not the first time we've encountered a collier, of course. We've had an entire play about one. Well, in theory, actually, it wasn't. He barely appeared in that either. But you can't have it all. And that was Like Will to Like, for those interested, which is also similarly about the same time. So I'm just wondering if that was again a thing that people were playing around with as a trope or something. So final thoughts from the room. I'll start with someone who's here yesterday and give us more of an overview, as it were. So Andrew, you've been here for both sessions. You're not going to be here for tomorrow for the close, so this is your last chance to say how you're feeling about this, what parts appeal to you as an actor, and thinking about how we might do it today, and general thoughts.
I like the way it's been developing as a piece, and it's becoming more of a rounded piece now as we're going further into the play. Some very interesting characters, and the stakes are high. The high stakes for different classes, how the upper and lower classes have been looked upon within the piece, and how each character will play their stakes higher or lower, depends on their status within the scene. There's a lot of that going on that I found quite interesting. Also, I think the madness of Dionysius, it'd be interesting to see how he develops throughout the play. I think he's an interesting character as well. It's very, and I feel Aristippus and Pythias, or Pythias, they don't seem to be or Damon and Pythias don't seem to be the main focus of the pieces at the moment, whereas they are the title of the piece. I think they seem to disappear in the background, and a lot more of the other characters seem to be coming to the forefront. And I think yesterday we were more establishing the characters, and today we're going more into the plot, because we only started going into the plot as we finished yesterday. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see how Damon and Pythias develop as characters through the rest of the piece, and how the play ends up and brings them all together. So yeah, but it's a very interesting piece, very entertaining.
Yeah, it's an interesting question of how this structurally is functioning. It isn't orbiting any one set of characters. It is sort of phasing between different sets of characters in interesting ways. And there doesn't seem to be a center to hold on to, as it were. Liza, you were not here yesterday. You've been dropped in it, as it were, last minute. Welcome. Your final thoughts?
Well, I quite like this play. The writing is amiable and the philosophy isn't too heavy. If you put it on a stage, you wouldn't, it's not Gorbaduke levels of cutting.
I'll challenge you on that one.
Well, fair enough. Fair enough. I'll bide your challenge, and we could have a comedy fight with fruit or something.
Absolutely.
No, it just generally, I like this. I'd be interested to see, what happens to Aristippus, whose name, for the record, means noble horse.
Nay.
Yay,
and thrice nay.
we're all in with the vintage comedy today. All right, it's all good. Yeah, just generally, not that much to say beyond I like this. I suppose you would have to be quite careful putting a play about tyranny and resistance to tyranny on stage in early modern days. But you know, it's a comedy played by choir boys. How seditious can it be?
Oh, well,
Very.
very. Yeah, I'm just going to briefly defend Gorbadoc here and about how much you should cut from it. It's about 3,000 words shorter than this play, and it's I don't think it needs any cutting at all. I'm just going to throw that in there. I think it's a fabulous play, and you can cut it, and there is room to cut, but I don't think you actually need to. And yes, Liza, we will fight on this one day.
Ready when you are, dude.
Yes, pistols at dawn. Alan, you've been here throughout. Your thoughts?
I must admit that it, like several of the things we've done recently, it seemed very, very episodic. And the sort of digressions are interesting in themselves, but it does make it a little difficult to try and work out what the overall direction of travel is. And I must admit the A plot is not really engaging me that much, but the comic interludes do seem to work quite nicely. And having read Stefano yesterday, I do enjoy him as a character. And I think there is quite a lot of humour you can get out of the two lads, the sequence we've just done. Yeah, which would be not quite panto, but getting damn close to it in places.
Yeah, tomorrow we're seriously going to get in panto territory, I think.
No, we're not.
I might be wrong on that. Sorry, carry on.
No, but I mean that's basically as I say, the A plot is not really engaging me.
It's interesting about what the A plot is doing in terms of the way it functions. In terms of how it's supposed to grab the audience. It uses music a lot more. It is doing this. So we've got this emotional connection to it between these two characters. We've also got the debate quality to that, where there's a lot more debate-centered action rather than the comedic sense. This play is doing so many things. I don't think we should call it an A and a B plot, because it structurally doesn't seem to be quite doing that. It seems to be, it's a world with which that plot is happening, but it's leading on to other things. I think also we've got to be careful with any play of taking the title as a promissory note for what the play will actually contain. I think it's always the problem of us going, it's called Damon and Pythias, why haven't they done anything yet? It's not actually fair. That's a marketing problem, it's not a play problem.
King Darius for further.
King Darius, another masterpiece of theatre. That's a hill I'm going to die on. Honestly, when people say it's a hill that I'm willing to die on, I think I might actually die on that hill. Lynsey,
I'm enjoying this a lot. I think the characters are quite vivid. I like the writing. I like the structure's not bothering me, and I like this sort of debate quality, this kind of call and response thing that we talked about earlier. I think it's pacey. I think it's we've been able to identify certain things visually that would be happening on stage from what is in the text. I had no idea what a pantalon, I can't even remember the word now. The shoe.
Pantoffel.
I didn't know what one of those was, so I had no idea what they were talking about at that point. And I think it's quite jolly, and there's a bit of sermonizing, bit of ethics, bit of debate, but there's a lot of action. And so in terms of the section that we've done today, I think it's quite promising, really.
Packing a lot in. Lois, final thoughts?
Yeah, well, I mean, as you know from yesterday, I like this play a lot. I mean, I think on the basis of this, Edwards was obviously a very good dramatist, and it's a great pity that his other play, which was a huge hit in its own time, is lost, apart from one song, I think. And I don't know, the way that the various bits of the plot all do, in fact, kind of tie in. I mean, the different plots, the way that you keep wondering what some of these characters are going to do. I mean, I kept feeling with Aristippus that is he ever going to realize that his philosophy is essentially selfish? I mean, he came pretty close to it at a couple of points. And the fact that Dionysius was so puzzled in a way about the relationship of Damon and Pythias, the idea that anybody could care enough about anybody else to be willing to die for them, seems to be, I mean, he's not just skeptical, he's puzzled. It's kind of, there's room for various kinds of things to happen.
Yeah, and just to briefly follow on from Lois's point about popular works. I mean, this work was popular enough to be revived after Edward's death. We do know of at least one additional revival to the original performance, which I think is before this actually gets printed. So there's always the possibility that there are variations within this text between two different performance conditions. I don't know. More, I will try and look up some more on that for next time. So this text obviously went down well with an audience for it enough to be brought back for another. Lynn, final thoughts?
Yeah, a couple of different things. It just worth looking at. My response to the different worlds is kind of the opposite of Alan's. I find the intrigue plot kind of interesting and the comic interludes a little tedious. So a lot would depend on how you played that. So it might be good to know, if you're thinking about staging this, that some people are interested in the court plot and are a little impatient to get the funny bits over with, and some people have the exact opposite, and it's like the court plot, who cares, but the funny bit is great. So you have to try to make it all appeal to everyone. And in terms of the title, I think maybe I would argue that Damon and Pythias are the title characters, in the sense that Antigone is the title character in Sophocles' play. Technically, Creon is the protagonist. He's the biggest part. He's the character whose arc is the spine of the play in that play by Sophocles, but it's called Antigone. Because the action kind of revolves around her, even though she might not technically be the protagonist. So the problem of what to do with Damon and Pythias, even though they don't have a lot of stage time, that relationship and that intrigue that kind of revolves around them is what the play is about. And what I will be looking forward to when I listen to the video later, because I'm not on the schedule tomorrow morning, afternoon for you guys, is I am really interested in the triad of Aristippus, Carisophus, and Eubulus, because we have Carisophus, who really seems to have nothing redeeming about him, and Aristippus, who everyone likes him. He's got a great sense of humor. He's charming, but he keeps his nose clean. I don't get involved with that stuff. And Eubulus is not afraid to speak truth to power. So there's three different ways of being a courtier, not just good courtier and bad courtier, but we have clearly bad courtier, noble courtier, and the guy who tries to sit on the fence. So I will be interested to see what the play wants us to take away about those three when everything gets resolved.
Yes, I think that's a really good point about, all roads lead to Damon and Pythias, even if the all of these incidents are not directly involving them, that they are driving everything that's happening in this play. It's all the servants of the servants reacting to the issues that they're just simply by being here, they have caused the universe to shift slightly. Outsiders entering a closed system, creating all sorts of havoc, like a rat on an island in the middle of the Pacific or something. I don't know where I'm going with that. I'm just going to move back away from that now, just very quickly. I did have another thought that I had. Yeah, following on from Lynn's point about, actually, it's technically probably a lot harder to do a play which is trying to please everyone than a play that markets itself to be, this is depressing, so you can spend all your time being depressing, or something that's just trying to get laughs, where something is trying to do several things at the same time: comedy, philosophy, pathos, the will they, won't they survive questions, tension, music. It means that the players in the production has to be really skilled, and that raises the stakes in a way that is slightly scary. Helen, final thoughts?
Yeah, I'm getting more as we go on, not with this play, but generally, I'm getting more and more interested in the constraints of the original production, what it was written for. I mean, how it came to be. And I can see that what you've got is a fairly episodic play, because these boys were having to be rehearsed, or the author wanted them rehearsed in small, discrete chunks. So you've got 3 or 4 boys that can be taken off and put through their paces, independently of the large group where 2 or 3 would be bound to be horsing around, disrupting the rest. And I see this as very much a good play for boys.
Mm.
And that is one of the reasons why I like the way that it's nicely divided up. I mean, whether they all turn up in Act 5, I expect they do. But I mean, that's how it goes.
There's a bit of a class reunion in the final act, or the final sequence, but I don't think it's actually that bad. I don't think it's a massive pile-on. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to do it this week. This is a small company week in terms of numbers. So
yeah.
I think it gets a little tight tomorrow. I'm just going to briefly read the title page, because I think this is actually something I should really have read at the beginning. So, the excellent comedy of two the most faithfulest friends, Damon and Pythias, newly imprinted as the same was shown before the Queen's Majesty by the Children of Her Grace's Chapel, except the prologue, which is somewhat altered for the proper use of them that hereafter shall have occasion to play it, either in private or open audience. And that's interesting when talking about the prologue being really pointed about this is not about any politics. This is not about... You see, if you're playing it before the Queen, to a degree, you don't need to do that. You have actually, a degree, more license to be political in front of the Queen than you do for something that's performed for other people. It's a weird inverse logic that's going on, that you have a license to, if you are part of the household, to pass on a critique to your master or mistress. Whereas something that's published and disseminated, I think that there's a logic there to say, no, seriously, we're not being political. This is something else entirely. And that Helen's assertion about that prologue was absolutely right in the yesterday's session. Lois.
Yeah, I think the other thing is that probably the original prologue had a lot of compliments directly to the Queen, which couldn't have been done, obviously, if she wasn't there.
Yeah. Prologues are occasional pieces. They do change throughout the life of a play, and may or may not have been written by the author, though I think it looks reasonable. No, it's quite different. It's quite lengthy 14ers, aren't they? It's quite regular, so I do wonder. Anyway, I like Liza's point just before we close there. Did you say amiable? You used a word that I think suited the play very nicely. It's amicable. This play is very. It seems its heart is in the right place. It seems not to be pushing us too far either way, and I'm enjoying it so far. Any final thoughts before I close the session? No. Well, in that case, all that remains is to thank everyone here. We've got one more session to go where we look at the final third or so of the play. All that remains is to thank all the readers today and say goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.